Ruby and Miles rehearse their duet in her bedroom. Then painfully awkward noises come from next door. Her parents cannot hear themselves, so they have no idea how loud they are. Mortified, Ruby rushes into the hallway and flashes the lights, reminding them that they are not alone. Frank tries to explain, but Ruby cuts him off. When Miles reacts, Ruby quickly ushers him out. She has no idea the whole school will hear about it the next day. Students imitate her mother's sounds, while others mock her father's signing. Ruby is furious and humiliated. She storms out of the cafeteria, with Miles following close behind. What Miles treated as a funny story feels like a humiliating betrayal to Ruby. After school, her parents pull up in high spirits, while Ruby tries to hide her embarrassment. They blast music from the truck, loud enough for the whole campus to hear. With every student staring, Ruby wants to disappear. She climbs in and lowers the volume, but Frank turns it right back up. He is not trying to embarrass her. Both of Ruby's parents are deaf, so they enjoy music through its vibrations. They do not care what strangers think, but Ruby pulls up her hood and hides. Moments like this have followed Ruby for years. Even at a deeply personal doctor's appointment, she is expected to interpret for her parents. Frank describes his symptoms without a filter, leaving Ruby to translate every awkward detail. The doctor's office is just one example. As the only hearing person in the family, Ruby has become their bridge to the hearing world. Every morning before sunrise, she works aboard the family boat with Frank and Leo. Ruby monitors the marine radio and handles calls Frank and Leo cannot hear. That responsibility has fallen to her for years. Back at the dock, she deals with the fish buyers and negotiates the price of their catch. Ruby carries far more responsibility than any 17-year-old should. She has handled adult duties since childhood. Only when the morning's work is done can she race her bike to school. She rarely has time to change, so classmates tease her for smelling like fish. Exhausted from the early shift, Ruby often falls asleep in class. All of this leaves her feeling like an outsider. Years of ridicule have taken a heavy toll on her confidence. She protects herself by staying quiet and avoiding attention. So when it is time to choose elective, Ruby plans to take the easiest class possible and stay invisible for another year. Then she sees Miles sign up for choir, and impulsively chooses it too. Ruby is too shy to approach Miles directly, so choir becomes her quiet way of getting closer. But on the first day, she is suddenly the center of attention. Mr. V asks every student to sing a line of Happy Birthday so he can identify their vocal range. The students each try to stand out, turning a simple birthday song into a full-blown talent show. But when Ruby's turn comes, she cannot make herself sing. She is terrified of everyone watching, and of being mocked again if her voice fails. Finally, Ruby grabs her bag and runs out of the room without looking back. She runs to the old quarry, where no one is watching. It is the one place that feels entirely her own. Ruby is used to handling everything alone, with no one asking what she needs. Only there does she dare to sing freely. Her voice rises over the still water, clear, unguarded, and completely free, carried across the quarry by the breeze. Once she calms down, Ruby heads home and finds her parents arguing about money. The fishing business is barely staying afloat. Fuel, ice, and boat costs keep rising. Jackie wonders whether they will have to sell the boat, but fishing is the family's livelihood. Without it, they have no clear future. Ruby watches her worried parents fighting back tears of her own. The family's problems follow Ruby everywhere, even into the classroom. Singing is the one place she can release the pressure. Miles may have drawn her into choir, but music is what makes her stay. The next day, she nervously returns to the music room. Ruby apologizes to Mr. V and explains why she ran away. She asks him to give her one more chance. Mr. V listens carefully. He reminds her that great singing is not about perfection. He urges Ruby to stop hiding behind fear. Technique matters, but honest emotion is what makes a performance unforgettable. His words begin to calm her, and Ruby finally feels a little less afraid. Later, Gertie comes over, and the two friends joke around in Ruby's room. For once, Ruby can simply relax. When she realizes Gertie likes Leo, Ruby cannot resist playing a prank. Gertie asks to learn a sign so she can flirt with him, and Ruby deliberately teaches her the wrong one. As Gertie leaves, she proudly shows Leo the sign she has just learned. Ruby can barely contain her amusement. In the next choir class, Mr. V pays closer attention to Ruby. He calls her to the front for a demonstration. Ruby is still so tense that her voice remains tight and restrained. He has her pant like a dog to loosen her voice and improve her breath control. Ruby is too too embarrassed to do it alone in front of the class, so Mr. V makes everyone join her. The absurd exercise helps Ruby relax, and her real voice finally emerges. The class is genuinely impressed. Even Mr. V is surprised by her power. After class, he asks Ruby and Miles to stay. They wait nervously. Then he explains his plan. He wants his strongest singers to perform a romantic duet at the fall concert. Ruby tries to remain expressionless, but inside, she is thrilled. On the way home, her heart feels like it might burst from excitement. That happiness does not last long. At the fish market, she finds a buyer trying to exploit Leo. The buyer assumes Leo cannot push back because he is deaf. He offers the Rosses the lowest possible price. Ruby immediately steps in to argue, but Leo does not appreciate her help. Frustrated and embarrassed, Leo tells Ruby to leave. Ruby cannot understand why Leo rejects her help. What she does not yet realize is that he refuses to let every burden fall on her. He just cannot explain that to her yet. Their love for each other is often buried beneath frustration and miscommunication, but Leo's anger is rooted in concern, not in a desire to push Ruby away. He wants the family to stop relying on her for everything. Leo already understands the real problem. Their parents are struggling to let Ruby grow up, while Leo wants her to build a life beyond fishing. He also hates depending on Ruby for every conversation with hearing people. He wants to build those relationships himself. At the local bar, Leo tries to connect with the other fishermen. Without Ruby there to interpret, the conversation is harder to follow. The others trade jokes and stories, while Leo misses much of what is said. He watches their faces for clues, and laughs along when he can. Then another customer bumps into him, and walks away without apologizing. Leo stands and demands some respect, but the man dismisses him with open contempt. The problem is not that Leo has no voice, it is that the hearing people around him refuse to listen. They treat his anger as if it does not matter, and some even laugh at his frustration. Eventually, Leo loses his temper and throws a punch, yet the confrontation also creates an unexpected connection. As Leo sits at the bar, still furious, he does not notice a young woman watching him with interest. Gertie is working there that night, and witnesses the confrontation. She already has a crush on Leo, and seeing him stand up for himself only deepens it. When their eyes meet, the attraction between them is clear. After class the next day, Ruby and Miles stay behind to rehearse. Mr. V is disappointed with their performance, because they have not practiced together. Their voices sound disconnected and uncertain. Mr. V makes them face each other as they sing. With Mr. V guiding them, the duet immediately sounds more natural. He orders them to practice together, then sends Miles home. Ruby remains behind. Mr. V tells her she has rare musical ability, and a voice worth training. He wants her to consider auditioning for Berklee College of Music, just as Miles plans to do. Ruby has always assumed she will join the family business. She never imagined a school like Berklee could possibly be part of her future, but she is afraid to show how much the idea excites her. The more she hoped, the more failure could hurt. Her family cannot easily afford music school, and the fishing business already consumes her time. Seeing her hesitate, Mr. V refuses to let her talent go undeveloped. He explains that Berklee offers scholarship, then asks what singing feels like to her. He pushes her to describe why music matters so deeply. Ruby struggles to answer aloud. The feeling is too personal for words, so she instinctively explains it in ASL. With Mr. V's support, Ruby gathers the courage to tell Jackie about joining choir. Before she can mention Berklee, Jackie is already uneasy. Ruby has interpreted for her family since childhood. Nearly every part of her life has been shaped around their needs and routines. Jackie has not fully accepted that Ruby will eventually grow up and build an independent life. Just as Ruby begins making progress, the family faces another crisis. The local fishermen gather to discuss a new at-sea monitoring rule. A government observer must ride along, but the fishermen have to pay the cost themselves. They are already angry about buyers driving down prices, leaving many crews barely able to survive. The added expense pushes the room to a breaking point. Frank stands and says they will sell the fish themselves, but the promise Frank and Leo make that night is far harder to fulfill than it sounds. Launching Fresh Catch creates even more work. Every customer, delivery, and business deal adds another conversation for Ruby to handle. Fishing, storage, advertising, and sales all begin consuming her time. Fresh Catch slowly takes shape. But Ruby grows more exhausted each day. She even falls asleep during a voice lesson, and keeps arriving late. Mr. V is running out of patience. Determined not to let him down, Ruby finishes the family work, and rushes out with her school bag, but Jackie stops her at the door. Ruby feels trapped. Family obligations still control her schedule, and her own plans are always sacrificed first. During a promotional interview, Frank speaks enthusiastically, while Ruby keeps checking her phone. Mr. V has texted, and this time he is furious. As soon as the interview ends, Ruby races to his house, but no one is there. Refusing to give up, she heads to the school, and finally finds him in the music room. Mr. V is harsh, but he forces Ruby to confront the truth. Her family gives her love and security, but their dependence also keeps her from taking risks. She can no longer avoid the choice. Only by finding the courage to tell her family what she truly wants can Ruby begin building a life of her own. When she finally says she wants to audition for Berkeley, her parents are afraid to let her go. Fresh Catch has just begun, and they still rely on Ruby. Ruby's tears reveal how deeply the pressure has wounded her. Her family has never understood how much she wants this. Frank begins to soften, but Jackie remains overwhelmed by fear. Jackie has no answer. Ruby may be the youngest in the family, but she is rarely allowed to feel like a child, while other teenagers get to live more freely. Ruby has carried adult responsibilities for years. Her own identity and dreams have been buried beneath those demands. Hard to explain and even harder to defend. The next day, Ruby skips the fishing trip with Frank and Leo. Instead, she takes Miles to her private escape at the quarry. They swim, laugh, and forget everything for a while. For once, Ruby is completely carefree. The shy excitement between them fills the afternoon. Miles even finds the nerve to leap from the high ledge. Ruby has not smiled this freely in years. She has no idea that trouble is unfolding at sea. That is also the day Joanne boards the Angela Rose as an observer. Frank and Leo head out without Ruby, while Joanne monitors their work. The communication gap is clear, but the real danger comes later, when radio calls go unanswered. The problem is not that Frank and Leo are deaf, it is that the safety system depends entirely on sound. Before Frank can fish again, he must pay a heavy fine, and keep a hearing crew member aboard for radio alert. Ruby pauses before interpreting the full requirement, already assuming that person will have to be her. At dinner that night, Frank says they may have to sell the boat. Ruby has often complained about working at sea, but now she begs him not to give up. She offers to remain on the boat with Frank, and postpone college and music indefinitely. Ruby has always been praised for being mature, but that maturity comes from protecting her family, even at the cost of her own future. Frank and Jackie are relieved, but Leo is furious. He speaks harshly to Ruby, but his anger hides the real reason he is upset. He cannot bear to watch his sister sacrifice herself. He is also frustrated that, as her older brother, he is still not trusted to help carry the family forward. Jackie is struggling too. That evening, Jackie brings out a beautiful red dress, and gives it to Ruby for the concert. As Ruby tries it on, the mood between mother and daughter softens. Then Ruby asks the question she has carried for years. Did Jackie ever wish her hearing daughter had been deaf? Jackie admits she did, afraid they would never truly connect. The next morning, Ruby finds Leo. She asks him to stop being angry, and her usually tough brother finally tells her the truth. Leo says the family managed before Ruby was born, and will learn to manage when she leaves. They can hire help, and hearing people can meet them halfway. Ruby does not have to stay just because she believes her family cannot survive without her. So on the night of the concert, even though they cannot hear the music, the entire Rossi family comes to watch Ruby perform. Jackie beams simply from seeing Ruby's name printed in the program. As the concert begins, the family watches the people around them to know when to applaud. Then Ruby and Miles step forward for their duet. At that moment, the soundtrack fades to silence, placing the audience inside the Ross's experience. They cannot hear the performance, they can only read the room. They cannot hear Ruby's voice, but they see the audience rise to applaud. Those reactions reveal how deeply her singing moves people. After the concert, Mr. V congratulates Ruby on the performance. Later that night, Frank is still moved by what he saw. He is proud of Ruby, and heartbroken that she plans to give up her dream for them. He decides not to hold her back. Frank asks Ruby to sing for him. He cannot hear her voice, but he feels its vibrations with his hand. Watching her face and feeling those vibrations, he finally understands what music means to her. Early the next morning, Ruby is still asleep when Frank urgently wakes her. The whole family has decided to drive her to the Berkeley audition in Boston. At Berkeley, she sees other applicants dressed and fully prepared. Her nerves return immediately. Jackie assures her that she looks beautiful exactly as she is. The family left in such a rush that Ruby had no time to dress up, and she even forgot her sheet music. Then Mr. V appears. He asks the judges to let him accompany Ruby on piano. She begins nervously, and her voice remains restrained. The judges appear unconvinced, so Mr. V stops her and gives her a chance to start again. Meanwhile, Ruby's family finds another entrance, and slips onto the balcony above the room. When Ruby sees them, her fear begins to disappear. To make the song accessible to her family, she signs the lyrics as she sings. During the most important performance of her life, Ruby brings her family into the moment. Signing does not weaken her singing. It helps her sing with greater honesty. In the following week, life begins to improve. Fresh Catch becomes more successful, and Leo builds stronger ties in the fishing community. Then Ruby learns that Berkeley has accepted her. On the day she leaves for Boston, her family gathers by the road to say goodbye. They have packed a few comforts from home for the trip. Ruby climbs into Gertie's car. Goodbyes are painful, and Ruby fears she will start crying, so she initially refuses to look back. But as the car pulls away, she asks Gertie to stop. Ruby runs back and wraps her family in one final hug. Instead of pretending the separation does not hurt, she allows herself to face it openly. That, too, is part of growing up. Frank gently touches his daughter's face, and uses his voice to say one word, go. With her father's blessing, Ruby leaves to pursue her dream. Her family signs their love as the car pulls away, and Ruby answers with their special family variation. She crosses her fingers as she signs, promising to love them forever. Coda is not based on one specific true story. It is an American remake of La Famille Bellier, reimagined around a deaf fishing family in Gloucester. Its warmth comes from the way the Rosses argue, joke, work, and love one another. The family is never defined by what they cannot hear. Their language, culture, skills, and love give them strength. Ruby's struggle feels familiar to anyone caught between family expectations and personal dreams, and longing to be heard as an individual. Growing up means carrying responsibility without abandoning what gives life meaning. Love offers both the comfort of staying close and the courage to let someone go. Like Ruby's voice, her future will travel beyond Gloucester, toward places she has never seen. The love that carried her this far was never meant to hold her back. It was meant to help her fly.